Hi everyone, I'm back with another video, and this time it's my true crime story. Well, actually, I don't know if you would consider this true crime, but it's a story about the murder of a young girl. I still feel like her story needs to be shared, which I'm pretty sure it has been shared a lot of times, but you know, I just want to cover this one because it's really sad. But I'll be doing my makeup along with that, and I hope you guys like this story. If you're really young, I suggest you don't watch this video because you know it's just a graphic story, so yeah. But anyways, let's continue. So I'll just be getting ready today. I don't know, I'm not really doing anything special. And so this story is about Sylvia Marie Likens. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of her. She was born on January 3, 1949. A long time ago. Anyways, so her parents were Lester and Elizabeth. Alright, so she had 4 other siblings, and she was the third. So from what I read, she was born between 2 sets of twins. So her parents first, Lester and Elizabeth, had Diana and Daniel. Those were the first 2 twins. Then it was Sylvia, and then after Sylvia, it was the last set of twins, which was Jenny and Benny. So she was in the middle, like I said. She was born in between. And her parents first lived in Lebanon, Indiana. So she was born in Lebanon, Indiana. I forgot to say that. Her parents were carnival workers. They had a lot of kids, so they weren't making ends meet. From what I read, her father was a alcoholic. And so, you know, when one of your parents suffers from addiction, nothing's easy at all. That doesn't go for everyone, but for Sylvia's family, this was really bad. And her parents couldn't really take care of all the kids. And so they were struggling financially. Also from what I read, so Sylvia's parents, they would also have arguments between them. So they weren't like a nice married couple. They always had arguments and they were fighting. So Sylvia's parents would go around Indiana and work as carnival workers. And while they were working, Sylvia and her siblings they would be sent to their grandmothers or to other family and be taken care of while their parents were working. So Sylvia, in her teenage years, she would make her own money by doing like chores, running errands for other people, ironing clothes for other people, and babysitting too. So Sylvia Likens would always be described as lively, cheerful, and really friendly too, in a good way. I will show you guys a picture of Sylvia in a bit. But in her earlier years, she had lost a front tooth, I think when she was around 7, because she was playing around or something. And because of that, she tended to smile with her mouth closed. So she was kind of embarrassed of that. But here's a picture of Sylvia. So as the years went on, Sylvia's parents finally got a stable job and they moved to the city, to Indianapolis. They moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, and they bought a house where they lived for 2 years. They were fine, but then once again they found themselves working as carnival workers, which was really bad because the kids were older now and they didn't have enough money. So there was one time where Sylvia's mom was caught shoplifting and she was sent to jail. After the mom was jailed for shoplifting, the girls found themselves living alone because from what I know, their father was far away. But then he came back, and when he came back, he met Gertrude Baniszewski or Baniszewski. I think it's Baniszewski. He met Gertrude, and the girls were friends with Gertrude's daughter. So Paula and Stephanie Baniszewski were friends with Sylvia and Jenny, Sylvia's younger sister. So they met while at Arsenal Tech High School in Indiana. And Gertrude was very sick and she didn't have a job, so she needed the extra money. So she was like, okay, well, if your wife's in jail and you're struggling, you know, I can take care of your daughters. You guys can pay me and I'll take care of your daughters in the meantime. So he was like, sure. Elizabeth and Lester, the parents of Sylvia and Jenny, arranged something and they stayed over at Gertrude's house, which was never a good idea. They didn't really know her for a long time. They had just met Gertrude. They were really desperate for help, so they just took it. That was never a good idea, like I said. So they would be paying $10 for each girl. So every week, it'd be $20 each week. They were supposed to stay there till August, till the endings of August, but I'm reading that it's till November. It was either one of those. But they would be staying with Gertrude for a while. So when Sylvia and Jenny moved in with the Baniszewski family, they were actually really excited because, like I said, they were friends with Paula and Stephanie. When you're a kid, you're friends with someone, you're spending more time with them, that means more fun. So they were excited. The first weeks they started living there, everything was fine. So Gertrude had 7 kids and she was 6 and she had no money. And before anything else, a little background on Gertrude. Her childhood wasn't the best. She got married a few times and her marriages failed. So that was that. I'm guessing she was depressed too. Like I said, so the first weeks were all right and they were happy, having fun, everything. Of course, they would help around the house. They would help Gertrude with anything she needed. They would attend Sunday school with the Baniszewski children. Yeah, so everything was fine until the payments started to come in a little bit later. I'm pretty sure they had a certain day each week, but the payments started failing and Gertrude would not receive the money she was told she would receive for taking care of the girls. The first time this happened, Gertrude was really bothered. She would take out her frustration on Jenny and Sylvia, and she would tell them to pull their underwears down and lift their dresses up, and she would hit them. She'd whip them with a paddle and she would call them bitches. And keep in mind, Sylvia was 16 years old and Jenny was younger. I think she was probably like 15 or 14. She would say, well, I took care of you too little for a week for nothing. But Gertrude would always go more towards Sylvia because I'm pretty sure it was jealousy or something. Gertrude's kids would see this and she would encourage her kids to be mean to Sylvia. She just brainwashed her kids to make Sylvia the bad guy. Every time Sylvia did something wrong, they would immediately go to their mom and be like, you know, Sylvia did this, Sylvia did that. So there was one time where Paula accused Sylvia and her sister Jenny of eating too much at a picnic, I think it was. Like they were eating too much food. Basically like telling her like, you're taking care of these girls and they are out here ruining your reputation by like showing that you haven't taught them right. So Gertrude was mad again. When the girls came back, they were beat 15 times in the back, pretty sure with the paddle stick again. When Gertrude started focusing her beatings on Sylvia, She would often keep her in the basement, feed her some days, and some days she wouldn't. She had to sleep down there. She would let her out sometimes. And when she did, Sylvia tried to go out and, make some money. She would make money by selling cans, soda cans, plastic bottles. There was one time she bought candy. She had all this candy and Gertrude was like, "Where did you get that from?" And she was like, "Oh, I sold some cans and bottles." She was like, "No, you didn't. You stole that." And then she was like, "No, I bought this with my own money that I earned." And she wouldn't believe her. And then there was another time Sylvia did something similar. She just brought money home, I think, this time. And then she was like, "Where did you get that money from?" And she was like, "Again, I sold bottles and soda cans." And she was like, "No, you didn't. Like, you're selling yourself for money." And so she would just convince her kids and herself that Sylvia was this awful person. She'd immediately take her down to the basement and beat her. And there was also one time that someone accused Sylvia of saying she had a boyfriend. She was talking to a friend, I'm guessing one of the daughters, and then they immediately went to Gertrude and told her about what Sylvia said. Gertrude was mad. She was like, "How can you have a boyfriend?" I don't know, it was something bad to her. While her own daughter, Paula, was 17 years old and she was pregnant by a married man. So right after Gertrude found out that Sylvia said she had a boyfriend, she started saying that she was a little filthy girl. She would be like, "You're a slut," whatever. Like, she made Paula kick her in the genitals. Gertrude was like, "All right, so for being a little slut or whatever, you're going to put on a show for these neighborhood kids." All of the kids were like 11. And she'd make her shove a glass bottle up her genitals again. And she did this many times, and of course Sylvia would cry. She would be in pain. There was one time where Sylvia had been punished for something, or really for nothing. She was forced fed a hot dog with overloaded condiments, and right after she threw up. And so Gertrude was mad because she was, "Why did you just waste the food that I'm feeding you? Like, you're disrespectful or whatever." And after Sylvia threw up, she made her eat her vomit. There was a time where Sylvia was accused of spreading rumors around school that Paula and Stephanie were prostitutes. So again, she got punished for this, which I'm pretty sure it wasn't true. Why would an injured child be saying stuff like that? So since Gertrude had all this hate against Sylvia, she would force Jenny, Sylvia's sister, to hit Sylvia. And if she didn't, she would punish her for not hitting her sister. For the Baniszewski family, it was a routine to beat Sylvia, like on a daily now. It was in August, leading to October. Everything was just bad, so it'd be every week, every day. It started becoming games to them. So the kids would call kids from around the block, neighborhood kids, to tell them that if they wanted to play. So these kids started meeting up at the Baniszewski house, and they would go down to the basement and dare each other to hit Sylvia. So they would hurt Sylvia, and so that also became a regular thing. Keep in mind, no one said anything. No one did anything. It's like she was helpless, honestly. And when she would go out, people would just be like, when she was at school or anything, she wasn't badly damaged. They would just think like, "Oh, she's being punished for the stuff she's doing." Back in the day, hitting your kids was normal, but nobody really knew what was going on behind closed doors. So the kids would never say anything, even though they saw this. No one would snitch. And Sylvia's parents, they did send the money, even if it was late. They did send it. And they would also send extra money for like fees and clothes and, things that the girls might need. But they never saw this money because Gertrude just took it all and still beat Sylvia for it, for the late payments. Sylvia didn't have a gym uniform, and so she started stealing it, and I'm pretty sure she got caught. I think Gertrude saw the gym uniform. She was like, "Where did you get that? I've never given you money to buy anything, so where did you get it?" She was like, "Well, I stole it because I need one." She was told not to go to school anymore because she stole the uniform, and she got punished for that too. So for this, Gertrude whipped Sylvia with a belt. After a while, Gertrude started burning Sylvia with lit cigarettes on all her fingertips. So, like I said, nobody said anything, but this was because they were either threatened or scared by and of Gertrude. The sister, they would make phone calls with the parents, but they weren't allowed to tell them what was going on or things would get worse. They never said anything, you know, kids were scared. Still not acceptable what they did, but you know. So Sylvia had begun to be punished around August, and now we are around October. So because of all the punishments and all the beatings and everything, Sylvia started weakening. So she wasn't really strong anymore. She started getting punished because she was beginning to get weak. They saw this as her being lazy. So because of that, they were like, all right, so you want to be lazy now. So you are not able to go to the restroom, which was her punishment, and you will be sleeping down here in the basement, like I said before. And this would force her to wet herself and go to the restroom down in the basement, and she would sleep with her feces in the basement, and she'd just be a mess, you know. And she wouldn't be fed, and she wouldn't be given water either, and she'd be tied up all at the same time. Gertrude would go down there and punish her, burning her too. And I said the kids would come over. She started making money out of it. She was like, all right, 5 cents each to come and beat Sylvia up. Then she was allowed to sleep upstairs only if she learned to not wet herself, which the only reason she wet herself was because she didn't have a restroom to go to. So she was sleeping upstairs with her sister, and she whispered to Jenny if she could please have a glass of water, which of course she did. But the next morning, Sylvia had peed herself, and she had been told to shove a glass bottle up her genitals, so this had messed with her bladder. So she had bladder problems already, so even if she did not mean to, she just did, you know, it just happened. And Gertrude got mad at this. She fed her a bowl of soup, but she would quickly snatch it away from Sylvia. So since Gertrude was really mad at Sylvia, remember that one time where she had said that her daughters were prostitutes at school? Well, she lit a needle and carved "I am a prostitute" on her stomach. One of the kids from the neighborhood finished the job since Gertrude couldn't take the smell of burning flesh. So she was like, here, you finish it, carve the rest. So that day when Gertrude carved this on her stomach, she had her lay there while her kids and the neighborhood kids came over to see her. So she was just displaying this for them. And later that day, Sylvia knew she couldn't take it anymore. She told her sister, she was like, you know, it's really bad. Like, I know you don't want me to die, but it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. She just knew. Gertrude also saw this coming. Next day, she made Sylvia write a letter saying something to her parents. This was a letter to her parents, and it was about, I've run away. Oh, like I'm this bad person. I do this and that. I've run away. I'm sorry, or whatever. So Gertrude was forcing Sylvia to write this letter. So after writing the letter, she was again put down in the basement and force-fed crackers. But she said she didn't want the crackers, and Gertrude got mad at this, so she just shoved the crackers into her mouth. So I think she was carved on October 24th. And so on October 25th, Sylvia heard Gertrude talking about the plan she had to make it seem like Sylvia had run away. And so they would take her to, it was either a trash can or a nearby forest. And they would just leave her there so she could die. Sylvia heard this, so she was like, no, I'm not gonna die like that. So she was trying to run away, but she was really weak. She was just weak at this point. So she couldn't really run or walk. And then Gertrude caught up to her. Gertrude gave her a toast. But like I said, she was really weak, so she just couldn't eat anymore. She couldn't chew it. Gertrude started beating her with a curtain rod. Then she was dragged into the basement after getting punished for not eating the toast. The next day, on October 26th, she was so much weaker she couldn't talk anymore. She couldn't form sentences nor words. So Gertrude tried to take her upstairs and feed her a donut, but Sylvia couldn't. So Gertrude got frustrated and she threw her on the floor, then took her back to the basement. That afternoon, after she was returned back to the basement, the whole family and the kids from the neighborhood gathered in the Baniszewski basement, and Sylvia tried to move and tried to make out faces. She would be like, you are Ricky, or to Gertrude she'd be like, you are Gertie. And Gertrude would get mad at this and she'd be like, shut up, you know who I am. So then Stephanie, one of the sisters, one of Gertrude's daughters, decided to give warm soapy bath. She had feces all over herself because she wasn't able to go to the restroom upstairs. She was kept downstairs. She was hit, she was bloody. She was just a mess from everything that had happened to her that day. So Stephanie took her upstairs to give her a warm bath, and after a while she saw that she wasn't breathing. So Stephanie saw that Sylvia wasn't breathing anymore, so she tried to give her CPR. And to this, Gertrude was like, oh, look at her faking her death. Like, can you believe she's faking her death? Like, how far is she going to go? And after Gertrude realized that she was actually not breathing, she made one of the kids call 911, and the police arrived approximately around 6:30 p.m. So she led them to where Sylvia was. Upon seeing Sylvia, Gertrude gave the police the letter she made her write about running away. The police didn't know what was going on, but Jenny, her sister, she managed to whisper to one of the officers. She was like, if you get me out of here, I will tell you everything that happened. So Jenny told the officers what happened. She said Gertrude, Paula, Stephanie, and John had to do with the murder of her sister, Sylvia. On the same day, Coy and Richard, which were some of the kids who lived in the neighborhood, were also arrested and charged with same offenses. The three eldest Baniszewski children and Coy were placed in custody in a juvenile detention center. The youngest children were detained at the Indianapolis Children's Guardians Home. Okay, so all of them were held without bail. So of course Gertrude would deny everything. The autopsy revealed that she had 150 separate wounds across her entire body. Her injuries included burns, severe bruising, and extensive muscle and nerve damage. Her vaginal cavity was almost swollen shut although an examination of the canal determined that her hymen was still intact, proving Likens was still a virgin and thus discrediting Gertrude's assertions Likens had been 3 months pregnant, a prostitute and a promiscuous. So yeah. So on December 30th, 1965, the Marion County Grand Jury returned first-degree murder indictments against Gertrude Baniszewski and 2 of her 3 oldest children, Paula and John Baniszewski. All were charged with having repeatedly struck, beaten, kicked, and otherwise inflicting a culmination of fatal injuries to Sylvia Likens with premeditated malice. So 3 weeks prior, Stephanie had been released from custody, successfully contending the state had insufficient evidence to support any murder or accumulation of fatal injuries against her. From what I know, I was watching a video yesterday on this case, and Sylvia's parents were, of course, mad at this. There's a lot more information to this, but I just wanted to keep this short. I'm sorry. People were heartbroken. People were angry at this. Gertrude. So she was sentenced to life in prison, but she got the possibility of parole. And so I think after 18 years, she was released. But after 5 years, 5 years after, she died from, I think it was lung cancer. It was some type of cancer, but she died. So Paula also got out of jail, but and she changed her name after she got out, and she got a job at a school. She was there for a while, and then an anonymous tip came in, and they were like, a criminal is working in your school. She was accused of being involved in the death of Sylvia Likens. And so after that, the school decided to fire her. She's probably not here anymore, but I think the only living relative of Sylvia is her sister, Jenny. Which I'm sure she had a great life afterwards, but it can't be so great after you remember everything that happened to your sister and that you couldn't do anything. But if you guys want to know more, there is a movie. So I know there is The Girl Next Door and also An American Crime. That's what the movie's called, An American Crime. This whole case is really sad. I don't know how someone could do that to a little girl. Someone should have said something at least. I don't agree that people were silent about this. And from what I know, Jenny tried, but again, she was a kid and she was scared. She was fearful of Gertrude doing anything to her. So there's also a similar case. I don't know if you guys watch Netflix. There's that new documentary about the trials of Gabriel Fernandez. It's another really sad case of child abuse. If you have Netflix, you should watch it. It just came out. I think it was like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Pretty sure it'll make you cry. But yeah, so this is the story of Sylvia. For me, if you guys would like me to cover another story or a story of someone or something, let me know. And I will do my best to cover the story you guys want me to. Also, if you know of something or someone, always say something, always speak out. Always talk, You might be scared to say something, but you have to say something in order to save someone's life. I hope you guys like this video. I think I'm done with my makeup now. Pretty much, there's nothing else left to do. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video.